Okay, so talking about isometrics. In general, it is the work version of standing still. And we did that little standing practice of like, hey, what do you feel? What do you notice? How long can you stand here? It was standing is generally a rest phase, right? Now we're looking at building capacity in a work phase. So if I were going to take that same standing situation, I would squat down a few inches until I get to work. That's kind of what we're looking at here. Okay, and these first questions are basically me giving you information. You could Google it or not, but these statements are me feeding you information without necessarily just having you read it. So isometric is holding a position or keeping still. Agree. Another way to look at it. In a work stage, because the muscles don't move, holding still, isometrics are excellent at training tendons and ligaments. This is where we dropped off here, but I'm telling you, yes, now tendons and ligaments. We have to, everyone thinks about muscles. That is our primary, like, where do I feel the muscles? That's our primary focus. What size are things, etc. The muscles, however, are encased in this like netting or nylon that stretch, release, absorb, contract, relax. All that stuff is happening through connective tissue, through that netting. Another way to consider this is really about athletic performance. So if you saw a ginormous bodybuilder with gigantic muscles, he probably wouldn't run as fast or jump as high as someone who is a lot smaller than him, has a lot smaller muscles, but has that elastic fascial or nylon netting training of tendons and ligaments. We want those guys like a rubber band to be able to absorb and release force. So we want it to travel throughout the body. So the cool thing about isometrics or holding a position is that the muscle will fatigue fairly quickly. And so what you're left is loading the tendons and ligaments. Okay. Connective tissue, so you understood this, right? So ligaments connect bone to bone. Okay. So all through our hand, wrist, etc. Anything that is, again, these are free flowing. There aren't any like hinges connected. Our bodies are connected by this mesh, by this netting. So a ligament connects bone to bone, right? Anywhere throughout in the knee. The knee is like a free, our top leg and our bottom leg have this floating kneecap on top, but for its ability to stay there when we're cutting left and right is attached by ligaments through the middle, inside, outside. Okay, so ligaments are bone to bone. Tendon then is muscle to bone. So if Achilles here, this is a tendon. It is connecting the big meaty thick calf through the underlying of the foot so it can connect. So when I move my foot, my calf connects, and when I move my calf, my foot reacts. That's what a tendon is. Tendons tend to be bigger and beefier, a little bit more pliable. Ligaments are a little bit more like taffy, like when you sprain your ankle, right? You cause that stretch and it doesn't come back like a rubber band. It kind of tends to hang out there. Whereas a tendon has a little bit more bounce to it. So why might it be important to train tendons and ligaments? Hopefully it was kind of in there, is that you do want to train the system and the connectors, not just the muscle tissue, right? And a lot of these folks kind of understood it with their words, so they don't break, right? If I'm going to make a cut to the right, I need the ligaments and tendons through my knee and foot and leg to resist me, so to stop me instead of breaking and me falling forward. That's how injuries happen, is typically through tendons and ligaments. They are the things that give, not necessarily the muscles, mostly. Okay, we do want to make them stronger. We also want to make them more resilient. Think about a rubber band. Ideally, we want to take one of those thin rubber bands and make it into a thicker rubber band with a lot more contractile force. That's kind of what we're after. The other thing that's cool in general about isometrics, for those of you who don't exercise, it's a way to get exercise in like 5 minutes, both sides, right? I'm just going to hang out there. You can literally roll out of bed, find a stance, hang out there, do something else, maybe come back to the other side, and that's it. If you are an exerciser, it's something that you could weave in, right? So if you are someone who's never looked at isometrics before, maybe start your workout with one and see how it affects the rest of your workout. Maybe weave it in between, maybe replace a set with an isometric. Okay. All right. We then looked at the specific split squat or lunge position. If it's not in your visual, what I am talking about is one of these, right? So if I'm at the very top, if I'm on my heels, this is resting. I could do this for ages. If I go all the way to the bottom, where my knee is touching the ground, this is always a type of rest. So to find the work stage, I want to probably one of the more difficult, being low, or right out of the top. So in general, the top tends to be easier than the right before bottom in general, depends on your body. So you would have to kind of find that range. So that's what I mean by a split squat or lunge. There are folks trying to come in. Anybody else out there? I think that was just the one. Okay, so I asked kind of about it. And we have this honest, about a quarter of the kids are just like, didn't try. And I appreciate that honesty. You are not forgotten, and nor are you scolded. After today, we're going to kind of shift towards studying ourselves at rest. So if you're at rest a bunch, you could still get your attention and mind into that thing, into this body of ours. Quick chat check. Oh, super okay. Thank you for the heads up. Appreciate it. All right. So 5 people got over 5 minutes. Curious again, perhaps you're in one of maybe those more rest areas because you inherently knew I need to take this as long as possible. Let me go more toward a rest phase. Less than a minute between one. So basically the big bulk majority is about 2 minutes, possibly leaning to 3, but that tends to be a good starting point. And like I had, a poor kid, a poor kid last class was just like, I only lasted 30 seconds. And it's like, that's fine. You have to start where you start, right? But if you don't try it, you don't even have 30 seconds, right? So the idea, and the more you get used to it, you'll find ease, okay? This is asking, did you decide to hold a rest position or a work position? Okay, rest is this blue. My guess is this blue also bleeds into that purple of the 5 minutes. Otherwise, you're just really good at suffering. Just jumping into 5 minutes of this is not easy. Okay, the not sure, it's the biggest group. Hopefully you understand from there that when I am fully long, stacked on my joints and not necessarily working, or resting against the ground, that's not really working. So we're looking for anywhere in that middle, from that quarter down to, or centimeters down to centimeters off the ground. Trying to build capacity by entering a work state, wherever you need that to be. How long after starting did it get difficult? Got the honest quarter being like, didn't try. Less than 30 seconds. After a minute, halfway through. So we're looking at a minute-ish, knowing that 2 minutes is most of our caps. So at about a minute, 30 seconds to a minute, we started to feel it. So then my question becomes, what was that minute of harder like? Did you tense up? or did you try to relax? This is what I hope to kind of share with you as I attempt to give you an example of this. I asked you then, hey, during this like suffering or work of 2 minutes, do you know what position you were in? Do you know what was happening? Were you engaged in here or were you engaged out there? As I look through the notes, a lot of folks were just like, I was just telling myself I could do it. I was thinking happy thoughts, right? So you're literally just looking out here for motivation and not being able to assess what's happening. Again, I need to get inside of here in order to find the ease without slop to make things more sustainable. Okay. I asked how many heels were on the ground. Big chunk, biggest chunk, both. Again, heels on the ground is a resting position. What I mean by that is if I'm going to take off running or about to jump, am I flat-footed or are my heels off the ground? Right? If you look and analyze that, being able to create force, your heels leave the ground. So if I'm trying to develop athleticism, producing and absorbing force when my heels are off the ground, I want to train my isometric with heels off the ground. Right? Those are the tissues that I'm specifically looking to train. I want to match the position. Split between just the front, just the back. Big chunk of, I'm not sure. Which leg was forward? Biggest or second biggest, I'm not sure. We have a natural starting stance in which we would start running. Our left leg would go forward or our right leg would go forward. Personally, for me, it's left. Okay. If I were to stand up and reach and fall over, the foot that catches me would be my left. That is my stability leg. That is my start leg. Oh, there's a hand raised.
I had a question.
Yeah, please.
So you said if both heels are on the ground, then it's not working. But like, what if you're just like holding a squat in midair though?
Okay, so I didn't necessarily say it's not working. I said it's not matching the athletic position of creating and or producing force, right? It's very rare that our foot creates and produces up and down. There is this lever system. And so your question is about squats, correct?
Yeah, that was just an example.
Yeah, okay, so, and again, if I give you, I just want to make sure you can see my feet, right? So if I was loaded, if I had weight in my hands, I'd want to use my heels and I'd want to kind of get in this position. But unless I can do that, I'm not really training the actual connective tissue that propels me and lands me. So a change would be to go from there to there. I don't know if you could see, but now there's a little bit of shake that's going on to help me find all those connective tissues that are turned off here, because now it's just loaded. It's like, whatever, we could do this forever. Now I take it off and I put it on what's called the arches, and we'll get to that eventually, I hope. Now there's a bit of shakes and quakes already. Those shakes and quakes is your nervous system being like, what are you asking me to do? I'm not sure, I'm beyond capacity. So I don't necessarily want to ingrain in your mind that you should be shaking for things to work, but I do want to propose the idea that if your body parts start shaking, you are on that line of capacity.
Oh, okay.
So if I'm trying to build capacity, I don't want to stay off that line. I want to see how long I can hang on it and then just like tap push it. Excellent question though. Hopefully that made, I heard the okay, so I'm assuming that made sense.
Yeah, it did.
Okay, and similarly, and I guess I will continue my demo. Let's see, where's the best place to put this? When I'm training lunges, because I want to train the arches and that propel land connective tissue, I'm going to have to go on and off the carpet here. Again, my left leg first. What I mean by catching is that if I was going to start running, I would be here. My left leg is first. When I talked about the catching self here, this left leg wants to come out and catch me. When I'm waiting for the bus, I tend to hang out on this left side. This is my stable side. It is something to kind of know. So if I'm going to train that lunge, how about there? Hopefully you can still see my feet, right? My back heel is off the ground because this is not going to do well for me. This may eventually take out my Achilles if I train going backwards. So I'm certainly going to have my back heel up. If I'm looking for kind of strength and stability, this heel's going to stay down. But me, I train both of them up. And when I say up, I don't know if you could tell. This is that arches stuff that is super cool, but I haven't been able to. When I train up, I am not on my toes. Like I'm not ballet dancer. I'm not on my toes or my heel. I am trying to stay on this area. And I'm training that arch. I'm training the system of my body that are in place to be elastic and strong and stabilizing and propulsive, which a lot of people don't know about when they're doing an exercise, right? They do the exercise, they look like the person, they have their heels down. I should have my heels down. But again, if I'm gonna do a movement, I want the biggest bang for the buck. If I'm gonna hold something for 3 minutes, I want it to work as much as possible. The exercise works for you, not the other way around, remember, right? So those little tweaks is how I train. And if to make it harder, right, you could change your positioning, you could go longer, you could load yourself with some kind of weight. Those are the types of things and the types of adjustments throughout the time. Again, get in here that you want to be able to make the exercise as effective with everything as possible. You want to tick all the boxes with one thing. Far apart with your feet, about 2 feet, right? In general, depends how long you are. Mine were a little bit over 2. I'm a little bit taller, about 5'9", a little bit longer. I actively tried to figure out how to make things easier as things got difficult. Almost half of you are there, which is excellent. Those are data that's unfortunately has to be tossed, but still 30% are like, I'm not sure how to do that, right? And I'm looking at time. So if I were going to try and turbo that through for you, so many rugs. Okay, so I'm going to make it, quote unquote, the hardest load. I'm going to drop to a hover. So the first thing, again, I'm still looking for my heels and toes off the ground. I feel right here. I'm looking for this to be loose. I'm looking for my hands to be loose. Right now, I seem to feel most, because my feet aren't that split apart, I feel most of my load here. So I'm going to try to adjust my posture to weigh more in my left leg. I could rotate my pelvis a little bit. I know these are minutia, but I'm just trying to give you an example of what that might look like. I might slowly, you can't see it, but I might slowly let my head go. So I get rid of that. With my breathing, I might let my rib cage and my shoulder blades, my arms go. Right, but that are the little tiny things, and breathing was a big part that most of you sunk onto. The next few lessons coming up are exactly how to find things and turn them off. So this idea of studying yourself at rest and actually getting your brain to a place to say, no, cut it out, we don't need you. Those are the skills that I hope to build for that, especially for that 25% who aren't really into doing stuff yet. So, okay, well, can you use this thing to get in here when you're not doing stuff? So ideally, We'll have the exercisers able to do it and the non-exercisers able to do it, because that attention and awareness could work either way. Okay. Stop share. Stop record.